Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am.
Nino Brown Boxing, I'm back in the building. Shout out to the LDBC. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Man, I know I'm dropping a few videos today. I want to continue to talk about, my favorite division, 154 pounds, and just want to have a quick conversation about my boy Jarrett Hurd. And a video was released this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. I know I watched it earlier this morning. It was by Trap House Boxing. Shout out to Trap House Boxing. And it was a very interesting video. It was talking about Jarrett Hurd and Jamel Charlo. And I've noticed it before. I've noticed it in live streams. I've noticed it in comments. And I just noticed it at a higher rate this morning in that comment section. And as I went and just watched different videos that I didn't know, Jarrett Hurd related videos that was associated with that, I started to see it more and more in the comments section, that a lot of black fans either hate on, dislike, or their loyalty to another fighter in that weight class is so strong. I really don't understand the lack of fandom that Jarrett Hurd doesn't have. I mean, obviously Jarrett Hurd is a very popular fighter. He has a lot of fans. But just the overall fandom, to me, it should be a lot higher than what it is. So I started thinking about the pros and cons of Jarrett Hurd, and the things that I see that are obviously pros, the cons that I see that I can also agree with, but the cons that a lot of guys seem to have, to me, with Jarrett Hurd, it doesn't make sense, because when those cons are associated with another fighter, those things aren't never really discussed, or the cons or flaws that are associated with another fighter, they don't really talk about it, especially if it's a fighter in Jarrett Hurd's weight class. It's extremely weird to me. So I want to discuss the pros and cons of Jarrett Hurd and just give my explanation on it. And I mean, the number one thing, we watch the sport of boxing obviously because we're fans. Some people are boxers or trainers. We have reporters, journalists, whatever the case may be. You have media personalities. And if you're an avid boxing fan, or even if you're a casual boxing fan, the number one thing is you want to be entertained. And we are entertained by exciting fights. And that's definitely one of the top things that Jarrett Hurd is. Jarrett Hurd is a very exciting fighter. His fight of the year last year with Arislani Lara, I believe it won PBC Fight of the Year. And it's funny because that fight happened February 7th last year, so it's exactly a year and a day from today. Now, another thing about Jarrett Hurd is, and I've said it in plenty of videos before, he is the only black male American unified champion in boxing today. I mean, we all say we want, the goal is to unify, the goal is to be undisputed. And when it comes to black American male fighters, because the Queen Clarissa Shields, she's doing her damn thing. And when it comes in that regard, she's more accomplished than anyone else. But Jarrett Hurd, he's a unified champ. He fights top competition. He's fought Lara. He was the first person to ever stop Trout. Tony Harrison stylistically was a nightmare for Jarrett Hurd, and he stopped this guy. Now, some people may downplay Tony Harrison. I mean, I remember when Tony Harrison was going to that fight with Willie Nelson, and Tony Harrison was the next best thing. He was undefeated. He was real flashy. That was before he was bald. He can box well, and he had crack. He still has crack. And he suffered that loss, but he worked his way back up. And with him being a stylistic nightmare for Jarrett Hurd got him out of there. We all talk about how styles make fights, and a lot of guys like to strategically pick opponents that are tailor-made for them. Well, Jarrett Hurd did not do that. He didn't do it at all. What else is going on with Hurd? Oh yeah, another big thing in boxing is friendships. Now, I've talked in the past about when it comes to 154 pounds, where the whole Jamel Charlo situation comes up, and Jamel Charlo had his WBC belt before Hurd got the IBF belt. And my whole thing with that is, Jamel had an opportunity to unify with Lara before Hurd even got the IBF title. And that made me think about the whole topic of Jarrett Hurd does not allow friendships. He doesn't allow friendships to get in his way of greatness, to get in the way of his legacy. Because even with Jamel Charlo, Lara, he's close with Lara, so that fight didn't happen. And if Errol Spence moves up to 154, that fight's not going to happen. So we can talk all day long about who do we think is better than the next guy, but to my understanding, you're only as good as your last fight. You're only as good as your level of competition. And just based off of the opponents that Jamel is willing to fight and the opponents that Jarrett Hurd is willing to fight, Jarrett Hurd has more of an opportunity to be greater just based off of the fact that he doesn't have friendships to get in the way of his opposition. Now, we judge a lot of fighters, especially black fighters, on the way that they carry themselves outside of the ring as well. We got a lot of clowns in the sport, a lot of guys that do dumb shit, guys that don't care about their community. Jarrett Hurd is one of those fighters. He's well known in the DMV. He does a lot in his community. He shows up for events. It's something definitely that a lot of young kids and a lot of young boxers have somebody to look up to with a positive attitude. He's not out here like the Adrian Broners getting in trouble and doing dumb shit just for the hell of it. He's not some social media whore screaming for attention and bringing any type of publicity to himself, even if it's positive or negative. That's not his style. Now, another thing similar to that, Hurd, along with Deontay Wilder and Errol Spence, they openly talk about social issues and social injustices that's out here, and they openly speak on it. When you have a lot of guys that either they just coon and act like damn buffoons, or the people that tiptoe around those type of conversations and they don't want anything to do with it. Prime example with Keith Thurman, for example. He's one of those guys, when he's asked a direct question dealing with a social issue, he tiptoes around it. Or the Floyd Mayweathers, that even when he's not asked a question, he'll say some shit like, oh, all lives matter, when that wasn't even a topic of discussion. What else? Now, another thing I've noticed, like boxing fans, boxing media, they love when a fighter interacts with his fans. They love when a fighter, interacts with just the online community. It's something that Deontay Wilder receives high praise for. But I'm noticing like that's something that Terrence Crawford gets criticized for a lot. But Jarrett Hurd, he interacts with his fans. He does interviews. He stays and he signs a bunch of autographs when he's at fights. He does Instagram lives. He talks directly to his fans on a daily basis. He replies to DMs, direct messages, comments. Like he's a guy that's very accessible to his fans, and he appreciates his fans and respect them. We have a lot of fighters out here that don't give a damn about fans. If a guy send them a message, let them know what they think, they'll come back and say like, well, I never asked you this. Like Andre Ward did to one of the brothers, said some shit like, well, I never asked you to respect me, or some ridiculous shit like that. Yeah, and that's something that Jarrett Hurd, he definitely does. Another one of Jarrett Hurd accomplishments, a guy that doesn't have a lot of technical ability. He doesn't have a deep amateur pedigree when it comes to just like a long amateur career, like a guy like an Aristide Lara. Jarrett Hurd became a unified champion in his 22nd fight, and that's something that's very commendable. And speaking of Lara, Jarrett Hurd beat Lara, the top guy at 154 at the time. Lara had that WBA belt since 2014. When they fought in 2018, Lara was definitely the top guy. He was the number one 154 pounder, and that can't even be disputed. And it's just something that, out of all of these positive things, the hate for my man Jarrett Hurd still remains. And it's like some of the shit that he's hated on about, I just don't understand. See, one thing I noticed is a lot of guys want to talk about the man's hair. Like I don't get it. Like I'm a boxing fan. Like I don't care about his hair or his hairstyle. It doesn't matter to me. He can fight. He's Michael Myers, Jason in the ring. He got a lot of heart. He got a lot of dog in him, and he do his damn thing. So I'm not worried about his hairstyle. Or not concerning myself with what my opinion is on his hair. Like, to me, I find it very similar to how AJ fans decide to go out their way and talk about Deontay Wilder's legs, or you have other guys that want to talk about Earl Spence's nipples and shit like that. To me, it makes no sense to focus on this man's hairstyle. I mean, whatever he want to wear on his head, that's his damn head. I'm not worried about that, especially when you have other guys, you have boxers going around with pink hair, and a pink hair black fighter that says he's not black and calls himself Mexican. I'm not gonna say no names. You don't know who it is, then it's no big deal. But it's, to me, it's just random criticism for this guy that some other people don't receive. I just feel like, I don't know, the support isn't there for him. What else going on? Now the same people. Oh yeah. So another big topic when it comes to the criticism of Hurd is Hurd saying that he wanted to fight Orthodox fighters in preparation for Jermell Charlo. Now, the same people that say Hurd will lose to Jermell Charlo due to a lack of skill have an issue with him wanting to brush up on those same skills against Orthodox fighters. Now, the thing about this is Hurd fought 3 southpaws in less than a year and a half. 17 total months. He fought 3 southpaws when he had made that initial statement. And he only fought 1 Orthodox fighter, that being Tony Harrison, and he was having trouble in that fight. So taking that into consideration, all the southpaws that he faced, I don't understand the issue of Hurd wanting to brush up on his skills, especially when those same people are saying that Jermell can beat him due to Hurd's his boxing abilities. I don't see anything wrong with that. We got a lot of fighters out here that are delusional, like the Amir Khans of the world, but we have a guy like Hurd that's very realistic when it comes to his abilities, and if he wants to improve on something, I don't understand, like, why would that even be an issue? Now, so it's just, it's kind of weird to me, but it is what it is. It's no consistency when it comes to that. Now, a lot of people say they don't like Hurd's style. They talk about how he's not technical, and it's just his size for that weight class, and he takes punches to the face, and the only thing he does is just wear guys down. Now, I'm like, that's his thing. To me, it's very comparable to Deontay Wilder, and I said it because Deontay Wilder has his thing. It's their right hand. It's his Alabama slammer. That's what Wilder has. That's his thing. That's his equalizer. He knocks guys the fuck out with 1 punch. It's really that simple. Hurd, he systematically breaks his opponents down physically and mentally. He has them fatigued, and then he goes in for the kill. That's what he does. Now, Wilder has been on record saying that he knows he needs to improve on certain skills. Hurd has been on record saying the same exact thing. But the same fans of Deontay Wilder that are understanding for Wilder don't give Hurd the benefit of the doubt. Now, I know it's not everyone. I understand that. I know there's plenty of guys that are very realistic and they're very aware to what's going on. And they keep the same energy across the board. This message is not directed to them. This message is strictly directed to the people that don't draw the parallels between the 2 fighters. They're, understanding for one, but they'll criticize the other guy basically for the same thing. Now, another thing was, like, her flaws are always mentioned, but no one never talks about Jermell Charlo's flaws when it comes to the Hurd Charlo situation. Like, when the topic of discussion is Jermell Charlo, at this case, Jarrett Hurd versus Jermell Charlo, all I hear, all I read is Hurd can't do this, Hurd can't do that, Jermell Charlo will do this to Hurd, Jermell Charlo will do that to Hurd. Now, the part that I don't understand is, like, one, Jermell Charlo is not some elite boxer like an Arislandi Lara, Floyd Mayweather type, or to me, even an Austin Trout, or even a Tony Harrison. Like, Jermell Charlo has been outboxed. He's a good damn boxer. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good boxer. He's a very good fighter. But he's also a headhunter. He's overly aggressive. He's overzealous when he gets in there because he's searching for the knockout. and he gets outboxed. I mean, Tony Harrison showed that. He proved it. Even John Jackson was outboxing his ass before John Jackson turned his back and got knocked the hell out. It's already been proven that Jermell Charlo can be outboxed. But then on top of that, people always want to talk about Jermell Charlo's power. To me, Jermell Charlo's power, it's good, but it's nowhere near as devastating that a lot of people like to make it seem. Let's be clear. It's 2019 right now. Jermell Charlo hasn't had a knockout since 2017. So even though it's not an extremely long time, for the level of power that a lot of people are trying to make it seem that Jermell has, the fact that some people are saying that Jermell is going to stop Hurd, someone that's big, strong, it shows a sturdy chin. Nah, man. In that situation, Jermell Charlo power is definitely overrated. I mean, another thing is, Jermell Charlo, he couldn't stop Trout. He caught Trout multiple times. He couldn't stop Trout. Now, Trout was stopped for the first time in his career 2 fights before he fought Jermell. He fought an 8-round fight to get himself back in the groove. He went for Jermell. Jermell got the victory. But he couldn't stop Trout. He couldn't get him out of there. And at that point, Trout was a fighter that has been stopped before, and he couldn't get him out of there. Another fighter is the fight that he lost, his first career loss when he lost his belt against Tony Harrison. To me, Tony Harrison is a great fighter, but we all know Tony Harrison has a suspect chin. So I did a little bit of digging, and I just wanted to put some things into perspective when it comes to Tony Harrison's chin. Tony Harrison has 1 less KO loss than Amir Khan. 1 less KO loss. Amir Khan is globally known for his lack of a chin, and Tony Harrison has 1 less KO loss. Now, I think Tony Harrison will lose again. I think Tony Harrison will be stopped again, maybe more than one more time in his career. But just to put things into further perspective, Amir Khan has had 4 years. I checked, it's 4 years exactly between each one of his KO losses. It's only 2 years between Tony Harrison, both of his KO losses. Now, me basing it off of those factors, and I've seen Amir Khan wobbled in fights that he's won. I've seen Tony Harrison wobbled in fights that he's won. To me, their chins are equal. I'll put their chins on the same level. Amir Khan has been knocked out on more occasions, but Tony Harrison has been knocked out in the shorter span of time. So, and with him being in a fight with a Jermell Charlo, this quote-unquote devastating power puncher at 154 pounds, I don't see it, man. Like, I really don't see it. Now, I'm saying all of this just to put things into perspective. The advantages that people are saying that Jermell Charlo have over Jarrett Hurd, I just wanted to take the time to, one, point out the pros of Jarrett Hurd, point out the cons, some of the cons that I agree with when it comes to things he needs to improve on, but other cons that to me are completely ridiculous, especially when those same cons or those same flaws apply to another fighter. You know, people are a lot more understanding. And then when it comes to the whole Jermell Charlo situation, it's like, we know Charlo is good, but saying that Jarrett Hurd needs to focus on Jermell Charlo at this point in time, because to my understanding, Jermell Charlo is supposed to get a rematch with Tony Harrison sometime June this year. But at this point in time, it makes no sense for Jarrett Hurd to be worrying about a guy that lost his last fight to a guy that he knocked out in devastating fashion. Why would he worry about that? And I said, like in one of my previous videos, basically, to me, that's like that's like Earl Spence worrying about Danny Garcia, even though Danny Garcia lost to Sean Porter, and Sean Porter has the belt. Why wouldn't the focus be on Sean Porter? At 147, that's what it is. Danny Garcia started to fade in the wind. You know, he had to step back. He has to rebuild himself. He's fighting Granados. And now the focus is the fight that we want outside of a Terrence Crawford fight. We want Earl Spence to fight Sean Porter because Sean Porter has the belt. Now, would it be a coincidence? We're just one weight class up with the Jarrett Hurd, Tony Harrison, and Jermell Charlo situation. Same WBC strap. Jermell Charlo doesn't have that belt anymore. So why should he be a focal point for Jarrett Hurd at this point in time? I'm talking April 8th, 2019. It makes no sense, y'all. Nino Brown Boxing. Shout out to the LDBC. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm out.